and that is a record here on the Open Series by far. As the 6th seed, however, or the 7th seed, however, though, Todd will be on the draw in this matchup as we get underway. Jared starts on Llanowar Wastes and Warden of the First Tree. Now, you mentioned that Todd is now on a Mantis Riderless build of Jeskai Black and going to have to settle into a much stronger control role than you would normally expect.
Yeah, if you look at Eric Smith's build, for example, you have cards like Mantis Rider and Tassiger, the Golden Fang, hanging out on the list. And those are cards, while powerful, trade pretty easily with a variety of removal spells and Abzan aggro. On the other hand here, Todd is not messing around with any of that stuff. He's trying to turn the Abzan aggro's removal spells into very inefficient pieces, and I think that serves him well in game 1.
Well, Warden of the First Tree will hit in for 3 to start the game for Jared. Jared's list of Abzan aggro, nothing fancy going on here. Nearly all the creatures 4-ofs. His spells, mostly 4-ofs as well. Dermokas, Abzans, Gideons, 2 Wingmate Rocks to top the curve, and that's about it. As Todd will just start on 2 lands. We build toward turn 3. Todd does have one of his main deck copies of Negate in hand. Multiples of those today, which I imagine have served him well in a lot of these Jeskai Black mirrors. That card, though, has the chance to be dead against something like Abzan aggro.
Not necessarily dead, as there are a lot of spells, but it's possible for the game to be played at such a fast clip that it's hard to hold up Negate. If Bauer is just carving out with creatures, naturally there's not a lot to be done with that card.
Yeah, and that's what Bauer's going to try to do. His turn 3 play was another attack for 3, a Den Protector face up, and then followed by Shambling Vent. So 2 creatures. The second one not as large, but he did get that threat of the Manland into play.
And this happens a lot when the deck opens on turn 1 Warden. No spell in the graveyard to get back, and you want to keep up the pressure, so Den Protector ends up getting played face up in a lot of these situations.
You know, that is something you hit on here. This weekend, we have seen more face up Den Protectors than I've been used to seeing, I'll say.
Yeah.
Todd, yet to cast a spell, but great mana, passes the turn. Crackling Doom and Negate, both in hand. And we'll see what kind of pressure he brings. Here's the swing with both creatures. Is Todd gonna pull the trigger on a removal spell? The answer is no. He's just gonna go ahead and do nothing. So that's a pass of the turn for Jared. Now Todd has options. He has Crackling Doom, he has Kolaghan's Command. Crackling Doom here, that'll take care of Warden of the First Tree. Now, he didn't play this one in combat. Took a lot of life points for that.
Probably holding, I'm guessing the decision here is to hold up Negate to tag a potential Gideon.
Interesting play here by Jared. So what he does is, in response to the Crackling Doom, he puts a counter on Warden of the First Tree, or rather on Den Protector, so that he can choose to sacrifice the Den Protector instead of the Warden there. That's a pretty costly use of Dermoka's Command.
Yes, I suppose you would want the 3 toughness threat over the 2 toughness threat to prevent something like Fiery Impulse or Kolaghan's Command finishing off the Den Protector, but Dermoka's Command is also good there as well.
Yeah. You notice he did not take damage. The second mode on Dermoka's Command was to prevent the damage also off Crackling Doom. But the use of a spell there, may be happy with it. We go back over to Todd. He has a Soulfire Grandmaster. And we look back at the rest of his hand. Dig Through Time, Negate, and Kolaghan's Command for Todd. It's actually a lot of weapons. He's low on life points, but this doesn't seem to be playing out particularly poorly for him.
It's going to be a little bit tough here. If he can swallow up Bauer's turn with the Negate, then things become a lot easier. But if Bauer just keeps on cranking out creatures, it's going to be hard for Todd to defend himself in time.
Yeah, now there is one thing I wanted to point out here. So Todd, we saw, taking 3 so that he could end step Crackling Doom. Playing these, turns very conservatively, and a lot of that has to do with Gideon and the fact that he had a Negate in hand. Because he has no Mantis Riders, he seems like, does he have to be very conservative when it comes to Gideon?
Yes, I think so, and that's a bit of a hole in the armor for Todd's build. We saw him struggle a little bit with it earlier on. With Crackling Doom and Kolaghan's Command, he can cobble together some sideways ways to answer it, and he does have copies of Utter End as well, so he has some answers, but without flyers, without haste, Planeswalkers are a lot more threatening for Todd's build.
Yeah, now Jared does have the Gideon, but doesn't have to run anything into that. He plays Siege Rhino post-combat. That puts Todd down to 2, and now on the ropes, we go back to Jared's turn. Will Todd even be able to survive the turn? He has a Negate, a Kolaghan's Command, and 2 Dig Through Times. A lot of powerful spells, but he's just running out of life points.
Yep. Was not able to break serve against his Warden. Did not have any fiery impulses available, and the damage has just been adding up turn after turn.
Yeah, it just feels like a bind. You know, Jared has had the Gideon that Todd was playing around the whole time, but never needed to go for that, needed to commit it. And you see Jared, he's going to go for the win here. It's Murderous Cut on Soulfire Grandmaster. He delves 3, pays 2. If Todd lets this one die, he certainly won't be able to win. So he's going to have to pull the trigger, but still not certain he makes it out of the turn. At 2 life, we'll see the play from Todd Anderson. Here's 3 mana. It looks like he's going to go for Kolaghan's Command. 2 damage to Warden of the First Tree, and has Jared, I believe, discard a card. So gains life, and then we'll go ahead and negate the Murderous Cut.
And Bauer just moves into combat and kills him here, so that's that.
So game 1 goes to Jared Bauer. A quick affair there. Obs on Aggro, up a game on Jeskai Black. We do like Todd's control build of it, but down a game, he's already risking his tournament life.
I mean, Bauer just started off on the play with a Warden, had creatures on most turns while Todd was sitting on negate, and Todd, could never catch up.
Yeah, very, very dominant display there for Jared Bauer. We'll go ahead and look at the sideboarded games. Something that you can notice when Todd is playing such a control build of the deck is that he has the flexibility to really morph with his sideboard. Let's go through what he can do.
Well, he's got 3 copies of Infinite Obliteration, 2 Russian Cleric, 2 Radiant Flames, a Master of the Unseen, an Erase, a Felidar Cub, a Dispel, a Disdainful Stroke, 2 copies of Painful Truths, and 1 copy of Virulent Plague. I think the counter spells and Dispel and Disdainful Stroke alongside Master of the Unseen will come in, and the 2 copies of Painful Truths. I know that Bauer is on the aggressive side, but I think that Todd kind of wants to just make his land drops, counter some stuff, gas back up, rinse and repeat, and wear Bauer out of resources.
He definitely can do that. And I do like a lot of those strategies he does to do that. Absolutely right. We look at Jared Bauer's sideboard. So many 4-ofs in the main deck, but when we look at the sideboard, it's very low on creatures and has a lot of different kill spells. Because Todd's control, maybe he doesn't go toward those, but what can he go toward? Well,
he has 2 Duress, 2 Self-Inflicted Wound, 2 Silk Wrap, a Sorin Solemn Visitor, 2 copies of Tassicker, 3 copies of Transgress the Mind, 2 Ultimate Price, 2 Wingmate Rock. A lot of reasonable options here. I like Silk Wrap a lot in this matchup, as all of Todd's threats are cheap enough for it to be exiled by Silk Wrap, and it prevents them from coming back via Ojutai's command, which is an important dimension for Anderson's deck. The 2 copies of Duress are great here as well. And he can play a bit of a longer game himself with Sorin, Tassicker, and 3 copies of Transgress the Mind.
Yeah, he can't play that game. So stuff like Duress, Todd's so heavy on spells. We have seen Obs on Aggro do things like Duress and then Den Protector back Duress to punch holes in the armor of Jeskai Black.
Yeah, and that's a very solid game plan. Anderson has a lot of card advantage in his list, so he's not as vulnerable to that as some other builds of Jeskai Black, but the more that Bauer can attack his spells, the better off he's going to be.
And we'll definitely see that. Todd gets to be on the play this for game 2, but he'll have to win both the sideboard games. The players shuffle up. One thing of note, this weekend we are covering right now the Star City Games Philadelphia Open. Next week, you're actually going to be in the booth with Cedric covering Grand Prix Atlanta. We have that coming up. Now, a lot of things that weekend also were the premiere of the new Magic Commander set, and that's coming along. We have that product as well, the singles and event decks from the event. You can order them and actually pick them up at Grand Prix Atlanta if you're going to be joining us for the Grand Prix next week.
Absolutely. You can go onto the website right now at go.starcitygames.com/commander2015. Order your sealed product and your singles right now. If you're able to order before noon Eastern time this coming Monday, you can pick it up on site for free at GP Atlanta.
We'll have that there at the Grand Prix. You guys are covering it. We'll all be there for the meet and greet on Friday. I'll be winning the event, so you'll see lots of me just on that side of the screen.
Winner's interview.
Yeah, it'll be great. We'll just hang out in the booth.
You can talk about the Commander products you like. What singles strike you as things you could add to your Commander decks.
I do like that there's a cycle of cards out of Commander that they're these cryptic command style things. There's 3 modes, and then you choose 3, and you can pick the same one 3 times. Big fan of those guys.
Yeah, you can triple up. I saw the blue one was...
One of them's draw cards. It's already great.
Draw cards, mana leak, something else. Don't recall.
Doesn't even matter.
I'm never doing anything but mixing those modes up anyway. So.
I mean, I like Dismiss, which is 4 mana counterspell draw card. So I would gladly pay 5 for counterspell draw 2 cards. So that seems excellent. Yeah. And if they don't play a spell, sure, we'll just Jace's Ingenuity. Okay, fine by me. All right, we underway game 2. Todd Anderson on the play, starts off on a dual land. And once again for Jared, it is Warden of the First Tree. He has that curve out. So this time, Todd gets to have the advantage of being up a land. We'll see if he can manage the onslaught. As we go back to Bauer. And same line as before. Pump Warden of the First Tree, swing in for 3. Brutally efficient.
And you can see Anderson already has his plan set up here. He's got Radiant Flames and Painful Truths in hand. So his goal in this game, remove, gas back up, continue to do that until Bauer runs out of cards. Interesting to see if this is good enough for him to Radiant Flames or if he's going to use turn 3 to Painful Truths here, hoping to get a little bit more.
Yeah, that is a very painful Truths. There'd be 3 on the cast and 3 more on the hit from the Warden of the First Tree. But when you have a sweeper like that, I would assume he wants to get more mileage out of it than just a single kill spell. We'll see if he can afford to do so. Looks like Disdainful Stroke, Dig Through Time, Soulfire Grandmaster, and lands to accompany the converge spells. And nothing fancy. Todd will just play a 3-mana kill spell for Warden. That's Radiant Flames.
And if he casts Painful Truths that turn, he has to discard a hand size anyway. And it's probably too obvious that something weird's going on.
Yeah, that's very strange.
So probably best served for Anderson just to remove the threat from the table. The higher he can keep his life total, the more and more he can lean on Painful Truths to be a huge source of card advantage.
And if you haven't seen it before, welcome to Zendikar with these battle lands. Jared Bauer, as we've seen with a lot of obs on aggro decks, goes forest into plains into dual land of the other 2 colors. That's going to be a red-black duel as he makes a turn 3 Anaffenza. We're back on Todd's side. You know, he did not actually, he was a 1-for-1 when he cast Radiant Flames. So still lots of threats to get through. And he does not have a clean answer to Anaffenza at the moment. Disdainful Stroke, Soulfire Grandmasters, Dig Through Time, great cards, but 4/4 is just a little big for him.
And now Todd's in the bind here where he has to decide, do I leave up Disdainful Stroke or do I draw 3? If he doesn't draw 3, he risks just getting killed by Anaffenza beatdowns because he has no answer. If he taps out, he takes a lot of points from the Painful Truths, takes a lot of points from the attack, and he's exposed to Siege Rhino.
Yeah, I mean, right, and that you just hit the nail on the head there. If he takes this 4, takes 3 off Painful Truths, and then this Siege Rhino had resolved, he would be at such a low life total. It would be nearly dead. As it is, Jared goes for the Siege Rhino anyway, and I think Todd gets the victory out of this. He was able to cast Disdainful Stroke.
Yeah, that's a huge win for Todd.
Now you line things up the other way, and Todd is looking at 6 life points, facing down 2 creatures. He may just be dead the next turn. And now we go over to Todd's side. It is going to be Painful Truths, and painful indeed. 3 colors. Todd will go down to 9. He draws Fiery Impulse and 2 lands. And he will have to fetch to play Soulfire Grandmaster. He drew a battle land, but only a basic swamp in play. So this will drop him down to a low 8 life points. This is a risky spot for Todd.
And I believe still no answer to Anaffenza. He's going to have to do some double blocking. He's going to need multiple removal spells, something like that.
Yeah, he did draw a Fiery Impulse. So next turn, and this is obviously not great, he can block and Fiery Impulse the Anaffenza, and then hope Jared has nothing like Dromoka's Command or Obzon Charm. As it stands, Jared will swing. He puts Todd down to a very low 4 life points, and the follow-up play is Tasigur the Golden Fang. Just another 4-power creature. Todd couldn't deal with one the first time, and he is hard-pressed to deal with one the second time. Draw for Todd was Disdainful Stroke. He has more Soulfire Grandmasters in hand. Keep in mind that the lifelink ability on Soulfire does not improve as you play more of them. Down to 3 life off the fetch. He has Disdainful Stroke, multiple Soulfires, a Fiery Impulse, and Dig Through Time.
And the mana isn't quite as clean as it looks. If Todd wants to play a Soulfire Grandmaster this turn, he has to go ahead and not be able to cast Dig Through Time as well, but it looks like he has other plans.
Yeah, and this is actually a great line for him. So remember that he has Spell Mastery, and his Soulfire Grandmaster gives things lifelink. So what he does is he activates Soulfire Grandmaster, then he casts Fire Impulse on Tasigur, then he gets back this Fire Impulse, casts it again on Tasigur. So Tasigur dies, Todd gains 6 life, then he swings Grandmaster, and that was a total of 8 life points gained for Todd at the cost of 1 card. That was fantastic. And he will need those life points indeed, because Anaffenza hits him down to 7 again. Jared follows up with Siege Rhino, and as impressive as those 8 life points were, he's going to have to go give 7 of them right back.
Yeah, and Todd is now facing 2 lethal threats.
Yeah, the Fiery Impulse is gone because Todd had to tap out there. He was not able to hold up Disdainful Stroke for Siege Rhino. He was able to load up the graveyard, so he now can get a pretty well-powered dig through time. It only cost him 2. If he can dig into the right card, he may be able to get out of this. But his mana not cooperating as much as he might like. If he pays double blue for dig through time, he'll be without white mana.
And with his hand just being copies of Soulfire Grandmaster and other copies of Dig Through Time, he's going to need a lot of help here.
Yeah, so he's going to go ahead and cast dig through time. He's left with only black and red mana sources. So if he wants to keep really a blue or white card, he's going to have to take a land with it too here. Dangerous spot to be. Delves away everything but the Radiant Flames. And here's 7 cards. One of them's a Plains. He at least has access to that. Finds Utter End, some lands.
And if he wants to take Utter End and cast it this turn, he has to take the white mana as well. Same deal with Crackling Doom, as his only white mana is the Prairie Stream, and he had to commit that to cast the Dig Through Time.
Yeah, it looks like one of the 2 cards was spent on a Plains. Plains, Disdainful Stroke. Looks like he took Crackling Doom alongside the Plains. Still not, I don't believe he has enough white mana to do all of that. Crackling Doom and Soulfire.
He also can't Crackling Doom and hold up Disdainful Stroke. I mean, we're used to Anderson's mana being kind of perfect once he hits 7 lands.
Yeah, we haven't even been counting it. I just assumed he could do everything.
And he cannot right now. His mana is being pulled in a lot of different directions.
There's a Plains he'll pass. So he has a Crackling Doom and a Chump Block. Looks like the line for him. If he waits until Anafenza puts a counter on Siege Rhino, he can ensure that Crackling Doom hits the Rhino instead of the Anafenza, which because of Trample, maybe I think is a must.
Yeah, well, Todd's got a lot of cards in hand, other copies of Soulfire Grandmaster. He can Chump Block for a while. It's just a Trampler that he can't really handle, so wouldn't be surprised to see that happen.
Well, here's the swing. A counter goes on Siege Rhino. And now Crackling Doom. Jared has an Obzon Charm in hand, so he could, if he's willing to spend it on the Anafenza, he could have saved the Rhino, but not going to go that way. Here's the swing. Todd gains 2 off Crackling Doom, goes to 6, and then has to Chump Block. So Soulfire Grandmaster's down, but Todd's up to 8. And not good news for Todd here either. A face down more from Jared. Only one creature that could be, that's Den Protector. And you look at Jared's graveyard, multiple Siege Rhinos at the ready, Warden, Tassiger. This is a scary creature.
Although Todd does have Disdainful Stroke. If Bauer goes for one of the threats here, he can answer it.
Yeah, if he goes for a Rhino, he can stop it. You see Todd play Soulfire Grandmaster, another Soulfire Grandmaster, passes the turn.
I mean, he can kind of trade off here. If Bauer's got nothing going on, he can try to double block the Anafenza and get off the table, or just try to Chump Block over the course of 2 turns. He's got another copy of Dig Through Time. It's not possible not impossible rather, for Anderson to get over the hump here.
You know, I think you're right. He's got a line. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. If Todd pulls this together and forces a game 3, this will be a real impressive feat on his side.
It looked like he was just getting mashed.
Yeah.
And his hand, he couldn't cast things efficiently. They weren't even answers to the threats that Bauer is presenting. But it feels like Anderson's kind of wormed his way back into this one.
Yeah, it's that curve out that, you know, that over in the sideboard we were talking with Tyler Barnett about. Warden, pump it. So 3/3 on turn 2, then an Anafenza, then a Rhino, then a Rhino. That's been Jared's plan all along. It's, you know, it's not complicated, but it sure is efficient. So we go back. Jared did buy back one of those Siege Rhinos, plays another land. Remember, Jared has a Shambling Vent and now land 8, so we might see the 2/3 enter the battle zone as well.
He has enough mana left over, I believe, to cast the Siege Rhino if he activates the Shambling Vent.
I think so too. That's what 8 will do. 2 Shambling Vents in play. Just so many options at Bauer's disposal. And here's one of the Shambling Vents. He'll tap 3 to activate. So Shambling Vent, Anafenza, Den Protector. Remember, Anafenza can start putting counters on Shambling Vent. That's even more terrifying for Todd. And the swings will happen. Counter goes onto, it looks like, Den Protector. Makes it into a 4/3. Todd's going to go ahead and double block Shambling Vent.
And I love this double block here from Todd. I think he feels like he is playing right now to Planner Outburst. He's got to be able to answer the whole board. And so getting the creature land off the table has got to be the top priority.
It's interesting. Jared does have an Obzon Charm in hand. He could go for the blowout. He's not going to, however. So Shambling Vent trades with the Soulfire Grandmaster. Todd would take a lethal 8, but he has 4 points of lifelink, so he'll end the turn on 4. And we'll see if Jared wants to attempt to make Rhino into that open mana. I assume so, because he didn't swing the second Shambling Vent, but perhaps not.
I think he's having some second thoughts here after Anderson's block.
Yeah.
I think he might be looking out for Planar Outburst now.
Ojutai's Command, the draw for Todd. Though if you're playing around something like Disdainful Stroke, there's still a concern, because if he has enough mana, then Todd can start Disdainful Stroking with Soulfire ability.
Well, I think that Bauer's perspective right now is, I'm hammering him on the board. It's not very easy for him to remove these threats. If I just keep attacking and he keeps spinning his tires the way that he's been doing for the last couple turns,
yeah,
I'm eventually going to win. But if I put the Siege Rhino into play and then I get hit with Planar Outburst, I've got very little going on.
All right, so here's what we see from Todd. It's going to be an Ojutai's Command. We'll check modes here. Gain 4, draw a card looks to be what he selected.
And Crackling Doom is a pretty big draw here for Todd. Now he's in a spot where if Bauer goes ahead and makes a move with the Inoffensive pumping up the Den Protector, suddenly that's a 5-power creature. He can Crackling Doom that and get it off the table. Inoffensive is not the fastest clock.
Yeah, you're right. It's back up to 8. Todd did have mana problems earlier with a little too much of red-black, but now does have the mana for both Disdainful Stroke and Crackling Doom. He's still alive. It's not out of the woods yet, but he's getting closer.
Yeah, given how the game started and how many times Todd's had to chump block and do some awkward things with his removal spells, he's still drawing live.
We look back to Jared Bauer.
And there's so many different things that Bauer has to play around, too. This is a very complicated deck to play against.
Yeah. Activates Shambling Vent. His hand is Obzon Charm, Siege Rhino. Go to combat, but before that trigger, it's going to be Crackling Doom. This will put Todd up to 10. Remember, he's going to gain life off this. What does Jared want to sack? Remember, he also has an Obzon Charm. Not irrelevant here. He's going to sacrifice the Inoffensive. Here comes Shambling Vent and Den Protector. Both in. I think Todd's taking the full amount of damage. Goes down to 4. Jack gains life. Going to try for the Siege Rhino, but one card in Todd's hand, and we both know what it is. It's good here, too.
Yeah, Disdainful Stroke is perfect here. This will knock Todd down to 2, but remember, he gets an attack with Soulfire Grandmaster. If he can find an answer for the Den Protector, he's in very good shape. And most of the spells that he draws, he's going to be able to rebuy with Soulfire Grandmaster. So it's even better than it looks like on the surface.
Here's the post-combat Rhino. That's going to get countered immediately. Yeah. Disdainful Stroke for it. It's in the graveyard. And we'll go back to Todd, see what he can draw here. He's got a lot of outs, actually. Any sort of kill spell. Say he draws a Fiery Impulse even here. Buyback with Impulse, the Den Protector. Todd has the lead now.
He pulls way ahead with Fiery Impulse. He gets to rebuy. He gets to gain 3 off the Fiery Impulse, plus 2 for the Soulfire Grandmaster attack. Now remember, last card in Bauer's hand is Obzon Charm, and there's going to be some ways here where even if Anderson is able to draw a kill spell for the Den Protector, the Obzon Charm alongside the Shambling Vent may still kill Anderson, but there's hope.
You know, and Obzon Charm has really struggled to gain value in this matchup, just watching it here. There's never been a great spot for Jared to pump. Certainly nothing to kill. It's playing out like a clunky draw spell. And that's, Todd hits it. It's Fiery Impulse.
You see the nod. He knows what that one's worth.
Wow, and Todd just threading the needle all game. Here's Fiery Impulse. It takes down Den Protector. Todd back up to 5. He gets the Impulse back in hand as well. Take that, Shambling Vent. Here comes Soulfire Grandmaster. 2 damage in. Jared down to 11. Todd up to 7. Boy, how things have changed. We are back to Jared Bauer. And 3 mana. This is his draw for the turn. It's Inoffensive the foremost. Great draw from Jared. Still has that Obzon Charm in hand. He'll pass. Not out of the woods yet for Todd, though that Fiery Impulse is going to do so much work. He can buy it back every turn just to gain life.
Well, now he's in a spot where he can, I believe, buy it back twice. I think that Polluted Delta he just drew is land number 10.
Yeah, so he can do 2 Fiery Impulses with buyback per turn. As long as he has something to find, which he should. He'll sacrifice Polluted Delta, go down to 6. Man, how much work is Soulfire Grandmaster doing?
Todd gets 6 life off of this.
Yeah, gets to kill Anafenza, gets 6 life points.
And I think Bauer's been sitting on this copy of Abzan Charm, I think in part because he didn't quite know what he wanted to do with it. Maybe he wanted to draw cards. Maybe he wanted to pump something.
Right.
I think we've gotten to a spot now where he needs to draw 2.
I mean, he needs to do something. And I think maybe in response, with that Fiery Impulse on the stack, you may want to try to make that play. And yeah, 2 Fiery Impulses with buyback. If you're Jared, you need to get rid of the Soulfire Grandmaster. If there's a Silk Wrap anywhere in your library, you need to make it get to your hand.
It looks like Bauer's going in the other direction here. Is he putting counters on the Anafenza?
Well, that wouldn't save it. It's Spell Mastery.
Sure. So yeah, he's just drawing 2 now.
Yeah, Gideon and Den Protector are the grabs. So Todd, tons of life, gains 6, gains 8. He's now ahead, but not out of the woods yet. Den Protector was one of the draws for Jared, so he should, in theory, get to kill this Soulfire Grandmaster, and he'll need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, he's really gassed back up here with Gideon, Den Protector.
2 Den Protectors to start for the turn was a second one. Now he's down to 6 life points. Things are not great, but if he kills the Soulfire Grandmaster, at least he shuts off this engine of infinite kill spells.
And Todd's build is very light on haste. There's no Manus Riders, there's no copies of Sarkin, so Bauer can afford to go pretty low.
And we're checking, actually need to do a check, make sure he actually has a kill spell in the graveyard. He's played a lot of great things. I don't know if he's played a kill spell this turn. It may just be all rhinos and creatures. And if that's the case, that's very bad news for Jared. Creatures are going to get gunned down by this Grandmaster.
His Den Protector, his copy of Gideon, these are not worth a whole lot if he can't break it up.
And he can't, so he's going to scoop the game. So Todd Anderson, what is it? With the comeback, you see it on his face. That is not a match he expected to win. It's not a match we expected him to win, but win it he did and evens things up at 1 game apiece.
I think that concession may have been a little bit early there from Bauer. As long as he leaves back the Shambling Vent, there's no attack for Todd to really make.
Yeah,
it's a little early, but you know, it just goes to show you Bauer drew what on the surface looked to be pretty well off of his copies of Abzan.
Yeah.
He was up to 2 Den Protectors and a Gideon. That feels like there's got to be the tools there somehow to be able to work around this, but his draw, as you mentioned, was all creatures and Abzan Charm. Abzan Charm can't touch the Soulfire Grandmaster. None of his creatures are worth very much in the face of Soulfire Grandmaster plus Fiery Impulse plus all that mana. And Todd was able to wiggle his way out of that one. That looked like he was beat several times.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree here. There were some outs he had to play to, so when he hit the Grandmaster, we talked about, boy, if he draws Fire Impulse, he's back in it. But he put himself in a situation to draw that. And once he did, he was able to turn the corner and take the game. I agree. I think you're right that with 2 Den Protectors at the end there, I don't know if he has any good lines. If he doesn't have a kill spell waiting, it may just be buying time. But Den Protector can buy time. That's something it's allowed to do.
He can Den Protector back a Siege Rhino. That gives him 3 life to play with, does a little bit of damage to Todd as well. So, yeah, felt a little preemptive, but I think Todd was pulling ahead quite a bit there in that spot regardless. And in any event, we're going to be going to Game 3 in a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So this game, Todd will be back on the draw. We have seen Jared have 2 exceptional curve outs. Each time has been turn 1 Warden, turn 2 Pumpet, Anafenza Rhino. He's had that 2 games in a row and it's been just really threatening from Todd's side of the board. I think he definitely needed the tempo of being on the play to take down game 2.
Oh, definitely. I think on the draw, there's no chance for Todd to stay into that one. And there was a lot of turns there early on in the game where it was a little bit awkward for Todd. He had to choose between make a proactive play or leave up Disdainful Stroke.
Yeah.
There was a couple points there in the middling turns where his colored mana distribution wasn't right. You know, he had double blue and only 1 white source of mana. The Prairie Stream was responsible for both. So if he cast Dig Through Time, now suddenly he can't follow up with Soulfire Grandmaster, which is very odd. You know, like we mentioned, we're just used to, okay, Jeskai Black's got 7 lands in play, and we don't have to worry about the specifics of the colored mana. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Todd was getting tripped up a little bit there by his distribution of colors, but still was able to pick some very tight lines there, maximize his resources very well, and was able to come back from what looked to be an insurmountable hole.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that there was a turn where Todd had 6 lands. He went for a Dig Through Time, but all his blue and white mana were tied up in the same 2 lands. So once he cast a Dig Through Time, he left himself with, I believe, Swamp, Mountain, and 2 black-red dual lands. Great lands, but just not lining up the right way. It meant he had to take planes off a dig through time, which I think was a really painful thing for him to have to do.
Especially with the amount of mana that he had in play. It wasn't like
Yeah,
he
it
was
was a
straining
4
for
up.
It's not like he was straining for quantity of mana. He just needed a particular set of colors there. But again, very nicely done there by Todd. That game too there. I don't know if there's a lot of players in the room that would have been able to get that one.
All right, well, we are going to shortly get back into the game here. Todd is back on the draw. Game 1, we saw just how good that tempo can be when Jared curves out. Todd had very wisely had a disdainful stroke game, or rather a negate game one that he was holding for Gideon, and he felt like he had to, just couldn't beat a Gideon. And indeed, Jared had a Gideon, so Todd played it well. But the issue was that by holding up that mana, Todd held back his own development, and in the end, a curve of creatures was just too much to overcome. He was in this bind, you know, you had to commit to the board and hold up negate, couldn't afford to do both. So we go on toward game 3. So obviously you can't interact with those. Those fast starts are going to be problematic for Todd. But I mean, what I'm impressed about is that he has done just remarkable these first 2 games, and none of it has hinged on Jace at all.
That is definitely noteworthy. That is the card that puts the deck on easy mode when Jace isn't killed. You're so efficient. The selection is valuable because you have all different types of effects in your deck. You contain the board. You flash back for value, all that. And Anderson has not had it yet. He's faced down 2 extremely good draws from Bauer and has somehow managed to get 1 of the 2.
Right.
And now he's just crossing his fingers, hoping that Bauer doesn't open up on the same excellent
Yeah.
open we saw in game 1.
I mean, and that's why we see 4 copies of Abzan Aggro in the top 8, right? Because curving out like that is not, you know, it doesn't take a miracle for Abzan to do that.
No.
Todd going to go down to 6. For the Scry, should still be able to recover. When he has lost games in this matchup, when he loses to that curve out, it doesn't seem to matter whether he's down a card. He's dying with cards in hand.
Yep. And part of the problem is that his removal doesn't line up that well against a lot of threats in Bauer's deck. He's good at responding when he has a lot of mana or when he has the cushion to leave up mana open. But when you put him under the gun, he doesn't have a lot of ways to untap and answer Anafenza or untap and answer Siege Rhino. These are challenging things for him to do. So if Bauer jumps on top of him early in the game, there's not a whole lot of recourse that Anderson has.
Some other updates on the bracket. Our backup match, that was Hunter Nance on Abzan Blue playing against Jamie Collier. Hunter Nance's Abzan Blue won that one in 2-0. So that's who the winner of this match is going to face. Either Jared Bauer or Todd Anderson will play Hunter Nance in top 4. So we're underway game 2. No Warden of the First Tree turn 1 for Jared, but it's going to happen on turn 2. He had 2 lands, 2 great lands in play. Neither of them able to cast a turn 1 Warden, though. So some reprieve for Todd, though not a lot.
Turn 1 Warden pump, turn 1 Warden, turn 2 pump versus turn 2 Warden, turn 3 pump. Very, very different.
And right now, I will say with the top 8, we have some other updates coming in. Abzan Aggro, boy, has that been the deck to beat. Hunter Nance, 2-0, beating Jamie Collier, mentioned that. Our one green-red Eldrazi player, Tyler Barnett, he lost the rematch to Matt Tumovich. Tumovich with Abzan Aggro was able to take that one down. So he'll be in the semis as well, leaving, you know, very few non-Rhino players left in the tournament.
Yeah, we're looking at basically Eric Smith and potentially Todd Anderson.
Yeah, both of them playing game 3. We'll try to bring you as much of those matches as we can. Todd, a second land and pass. Jared will fetch on end step. Now has 4 colors of mana in play, so excellent mana in that regard. Though I will say something that we've been noticing this weekend is that 2 dual lands in play, well, of course, that looks great. These can be pretty punishing because when the players start to top deck additional battle lands, they all enter the battlefield tapped.
We've seen this involving openings with the battle lands. I've seen it with Land of War Waste. I've seen it with Mystic Monastery. When people open up on a non-basic land on the first turn in these battle land heavy mana bases, there are stumbles throughout the rest of the game.
So Warden swings in. Jared does not want to pump in the face of that open mana. Todd takes 1, goes to 18. Jared does have a follow-up, though. It's Anafenza the foremost. We go back to Todd. No end-step play. So for Todd, it's just been lands on the first 2 turns. Now down 2 creatures to 0. Say it's a concern, but Todd has a bullet hiding out in his hand.
Well, he does have his copy of Planar Outburst. The issue is his mana is not lining up the right way. He's got a swamp and an island, no white mana in play, a Bloodstained Mire in his hand. Bloodstained Mire can't find white mana.
Yeah, it's the mutual, right. It's a black-red, can't find white.
And he does not have a lot of time, nor is he representing much in the way of removal right now. In spots like this, normally Bauer has to respect the possibility of Crackling Doom if he gets too aggressive with his use of mana, pumping certain things, but Todd's not representing a whole lot right here.
I suppose all Jared really has to respect his counter spells. And you see, he's going to respect that. He just makes Warden a 3/3 and attacks with a pair of 4/4s. Here's 8. You know, doesn't want anything countered here. Now his creatures are both out of range of Fiery Impulse, and he's going to make another Warden. This is excellent for Jared.
Yeah, nothing wrong with casting this. Todd not representing Planar Outburst.
And draws Utter End, no white source, nothing he can cast, and an extension of the hand for Todd Anderson. Things do not come together for him game 3, and with that, it is Jared Bauer and Obs on aggro defeating Todd and moving into the semifinals.
Some mana issues there for Anderson, some excellent draws from Bauer, and the Obs on aggro deck not giving you a whole lot of margin for error.
Yeah, and we remember that from last season continuing into this season. Boy, does it, there are those decks that just punish stumbles, and Obs on aggro is top of the list. You see Todd had lands, spells, missed one of his 4 colors, and just game over.
And Todd has to sideboard so much to respect the top end of the deck. He needs to have cards like Disdainful Stroke to protect himself from cards like Siege Rhino and Gideon. None of those cards were players in the games where Todd was defeated. It was just the low end of the curve. The fact that Todd doesn't have removal, there's no real Valor stances, there's no Silk Wraps. He doesn't have good removal that's reliable for Anafensa. And when Bauer opened with that card on the play, it felt like, well, Todd's going to take at least 8 points of damage. There's no real way to avoid it here.
All right, we have one more match with top 8 implications on the line. This is Aaron Sorrells versus Eric Smith. It's the 1v8. We're going to try to catch the tail end of that match. Eric Smith was on Jeskai Black, Aaron Sorrells on Obs on aggro, so it's the same matchup, but a little different. Eric Smith is playing cards like Mantis Rider this weekend, so has more of that aggro tempo style plan.
Yeah, it's more of a classic build of the deck, not quite the same